Welcome to Season 2 of Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. In this podcast, we chat with athletes, coaches, and industry professionals at all levels of sport about the benefits that being involved in sport has provided them outside of just the performance side of things. I'm your host, Fiona. I've always wanted to delve deeper into the physical, social, and mental benefits being involved in sport has provided people. This is a completely independent podcast that has been created to share the journey and lessons of top-level sporting professionals, but also your everyday lover of sport. If you like this podcast, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a review and share it with someone who you think would also enjoy it. Make sure you hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts or follow on Spotify so you don't miss the release of each new episode. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. Let's get into today's episode. We are joined today by the marvellous Nigel Knighton. A fifth Dan in karate, sports teacher and father, Nige takes us on his sporting journey of how he found a passion in the sport industry and made a career of it. This is quite a close-to-home episode for me, as I knew Nige as Mr. Knighton during my 6 years of high school. Nige started off as my Year 7 sports teacher when a very non-athletic Fiona used to forget her sports uniform or spend an hour running away from the ball. I was lucky enough to be part of a Year 9 self-defense class. Again, taught by Mr. Knighton, where I started to discover that sport wasn't just about the mainstream sports like football and netball. Mix that with finding my gills in the pool as Nige describes my swimming, I decided to do my Cert 4 in Sport and Rec as part of my Year 11 and 12, led by Mr. Knighton. It was not only my favourite subject during those final years, but the one I put the most time into and thus did the best at. When I look back now, if it wasn't for Nige's welcoming and engaging attitude towards sport, I may have been one of those kids who lost interest and dropped out of this wonderful world I'm now involved in. After a little bit of market research via our Instagram and Facebook page, to keep with the shorter format of Season 2, this episode is going to be split into 2 parts. In part 1 of this interview, we chat about Nige's early years and what made him passionate about not only his sport of karate, but teaching and coaching the younger generations. Let's jump on in. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Knighton. Oh, I did it. I called you Mr. Knighton.
Well played, Fiona. Well done. Oh, that's hilarious. As I said, I've been called much worse.
Oh, dear. I have it. When was it? It was probably... I've graduated 2013, so we're 7.5 years out.
No, Fiona. That just makes me feel old. 2013. No. My goodness.
Oh, okay. I'll call you Nige from now on. I'll try my best.
I can't get away with pretending I'm 25 now either, so sort of blowing that out of the water, but we're all good.
30. We'll push it up to 30.
Yeah, I like it.
So you have been a teacher, but you've also been involved in karate. I'm going to split this into 2 and ask you, what happened first? Was it karate or teaching?
It was funny. They probably both happened about the same time. So I remember being at school, growing up, playing a lot of different sports. So I was heavily into football, I'd play like rep football, rep baseball, loved cricket, was out all day, every day. And I think I had it's funnily now they've got like Cobra Kai back on. I'm having flashbacks of watching like Karate Kid as a teenager. It doesn't make me 25 somehow. And also like Bruce Lee movies are just back on SBS now. So just having flashbacks of being young and going, oh, that was just something that, you know, I wanted to get involved in. And I played a lot of sport. And I think we don't get that as much nowadays with some kids, that we go, rather than have that, you know, that big breadth of activity, people tend to, you know, work on like one particular sport and be really focused on that one sport, which I don't necessarily think's a good thing. I think it's good to have a whole variety of things, because you get skills, as you well know, out of a whole lot of other sports. So all of a sudden that coordination, eye-hand coordination you get out of different sports can transfer across. So watching Ash Barty last night, having a kick at the footy, playing some cricket. She's the classic example. So I had a lot of sport, so that was a really good grounding. But then probably in my teen years, started karate. I thought this was for me. Like, I needed it. I needed that outlet. I needed the training. I needed the discipline and the focus. And I just loved the structure of it all. And it was probably when I started early, when I got back into the training seriously, about year 12, that I thought, geez, I'm passionate about people. I love sport. This is going to be my life. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a PE teacher. And so Rusden was a really thick uni to become. Rusden was the sort of the premier PE college back then. And so studied hard, worked hard. Yeah, was lucky enough to get in. That was it. From there, that was the start of the journey, really. And so both of them probably started about the same time. And I got really focused on the karate and sort of left the other things behind, because it's pretty hard, you know, as a kid to be in a lot of things. And you'll find that as kids get a little bit older, once they get to sort of 14, 15, 16, they start to have to make decisions about, do I go basketball route, or do I stay with the footy, or can I be getting up at 5 o'clock every morning for a swim, or 4 o'clock, or whatever ridiculous hours those people sort of get up. So it's like you have to make a decision. And so you go, well, this is going to be my focus. So yeah, it's been good, but I'd say that was probably towards my later teens where I went, you know what, karate's for me. And also that was a career pathway sort of laid out.
Wow. And do you think there was a specific moment, or was just a few things in those late teen years that you decided, like, this is for me?
Yeah, I think it was in year 12, and I had to actually sit down, because I was going to be a Sparky. And then I think through year 11, I wanted to be a police officer. That's what I thought. I'm going to, and then it was probably towards the start of year 12, and I had to sit down and work out what those things are that I'm passionate about in life. And I felt like a bit of an idiot doing it, like, as the careers person, saying, well, you know, the whole thing, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And I thought, I don't understand. I'm going to do this, or I might do that, and people telling you stuff. And I thought, well, I love the outdoors. I like activity. I really liked hiking, camping. So that was a thing, like the whole outdoor ed, which was me for a long time before I got into the coaching of coaches through Sport and Rec, is well known. And I just thought I would love to make sport a career. And I really like the idea of teaching and people. And I had a great experience at school. So it was a smaller school than the one you went to. And, you know, come up with a 5-year plan and go, right, this is what I'm after, and where do I set that heading? So it wasn't like a light bulb. I had to actually physically sit down and write the stuff out. And then after that, that was gold. Like, for a lot of kids, as it is for sport to a degree, once you set the goals, it makes it so much easier to stay motivated. Like, the start of year 12, I was still doing okay, but it's like, it's just hard work. It's when you've got tests the next day. If you've got nothing to aspire to, it makes it really hard to stay motivated. So when you know you're trying to get a 40 in a subject, you just got to put in you're like telling the kids, you're not going to work for free. You won't go to McDonald's and just go, yeah, there's always I want a car. And so you have to have that goal. So once I had that goal, that was good. I worked my bum off, and that gave me a focus. So that was good. So I don't think I would have got there if I hadn't had that. We tend to do that a bit better now. Certainly at our school, it's just having the idea of just setting a goal, setting a target, and just it helps when those times are, dark and it's wet outside, as it was with your swimming. You go, it's 4 o'clock and it's dark and everyone else is sleeping in. You have to have a reason to get up and to keep giving it a crack, whether that's sport or school. And I'm in both. So it's like, you have to have that goal. So yeah, it wasn't really a light bulb moment, but it's certainly, once I made the decision, I'm pretty focused. So that was the beginning of it all, which is a little while ago now.
Yeah, wow. So that's the teaching side of things.
Yep.
In terms of karate, you're a fifth Dan, is that correct?
Yes.
What's
well done,
a fifth Dan?
You've done your homework. Well done.
Thank you. Well, do you expect anything else from me?
Exactly right.
But can you tell us what a fifth Dan is? Because I'm not 100% sure.
Yep. So what happens is once you go through all of your grades, so you go through all the coloured belts that get you up to a level, you get your black belt. And so that usually takes in most styles maybe 6 years. And so once you get your black belts, you have, they're basically extra black belts. So if you want to grade again, once you've got your black belt, you might wait, I think ours is like 2 or 3 years to be able to grade again. And they're called Dan grading. So your black belt gradings are basically Dan grading. So, and they become a little bit more technical, a little bit about what you're giving back to the club, a little bit more about the coaching aspect as well. So yeah, they're basically, they're black belt grades. So Dan grades are basically black belt grades. So it goes up to 10, but there's not a whole lot of people that get there. But it's funny, once you get to that level, it's not really about, early days, you want to achieve and you want to get your next belt. You work out pretty soon that it's not the book be all and end all. And in fact, even now I'll do things with, guest instructors that come out and think, my goodness, I need to give my black belt back. I need to put on, because you're always learning. I got to my black belt and thought, geez, that was the one thing I just remember thinking, you just think about more about what you're doing and how technical it is. So yeah, the Dan gradings are basically just black belts.
Yeah.
The more black belts, yeah.
The more Dans you get. Yeah, cool.
Yep.
That's awesome. So you've got 5 out of 10. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't sort of stick at it that long. So, most people that will sort of get to their black belt and have a play. I'm passionate about it. So that became a big part of my life. I had my own club for a while, but then kids come along and that's really hard to try to juggle all of that stuff, children and a wife and a life. So, and I was training pretty hard at the time too, but I love it. I've been doing it now for about 35 years. So.
Wow, that's incredible. And you're pretty good at it. I know you took, was it year 9 self-defense for me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I forgot you were in there. That is
hilarious. You told me that my best self-defense was to run away.
And you know what? It's my best self-defense. The problem is I'm getting slower nowadays. So, I'm still passionate about that. When I first started that school and we're trying to get kids engaged in activity, a lot of the times it's probably relevant to the podcast, which is great. It's that mainstream sport is not for a lot of kids where they go, soccer for the 5th week in a row. And so we were looking at other avenues like more your OLAT, so that the camping, snorkeling, surfing, we had some different sort of things for the kids to choose. And we had probably maybe 10 kids in the first class that I ran. And literally now the classes are full. So I have 25 in all of the classes, and I have 4 classes this semester. So that's 100 kids. Wow. And 100 kids that'll pick it up next semester. And kids have missed out. So they love the activity. And so with our gym down in what used to be the tennis center it's pumping every single lunchtime. It's crazy. And it's just being good to be able to use that as a vehicle too. And also just that's my passion. So I get to now teach that in the school setting, and it's a win-win. That they need, some of those kids need the activity and a little bit of an out, and it's very cathartic, good sort of a brain break from school, and also some life lessons too. Like, people, especially teens, have sometimes a warped sense about security and the world. So it's good to be able to impart some knowledge. So often it's the messages that come along with the activities, not just the activities themselves, that you sort of get to impart. So yeah, we still run that self-defense class, and it's great. And I think especially our cohort of kids down on the Mornington Peninsula, sport's a massive part of people's lives. For those kids that don't necessarily want to do cricket or netball or football, it just gives them another avenue. So I get a wide range of kids. And we used to have, obviously, a lot more boys. Now I get more girls in my classes than I do guys. So it's fantastic. I love it.
I think it was one of my favourite elective classes. Like, out of year 12, it was definitely one of my favourites.
Yeah, beautiful.
Even though I got dropped almost every session.
It's still fun now. The kids still love it. We have to worry about safety and, of course, all of those things. And it's a little bit hard now with the whole COVID scenario, and it's not something that really works online. So, usually it's just some exercise routines that we run, but the kids miss it. Like, they come back, and I think school gets a bit serious after year 9 too. So people usually look at it with fond memories, because after that it gets pretty serious, and it's SACs and it's exams and it's assignments and it's work. So people think, oh, that was, it's a bit of rose-coloured glasses, because I just know that after that it gets pretty solid. As you well know, year 12's a torrid time for everyone.
Yes. So you've mentioned the Dans and some of the moments in your early teens that you decided that what you wanted to do. Is there any other significant milestone in your sporting journey?
Yeah, well, they probably, so I remember winning like a grand final, even though you say, the domestically, it was the greatest thing ever. I remember someone saying, in fact, it was our coach saying that this might not ever happen again. Like my under 16 grand final, I still remember it to this day. Never played another one, never, ever. And so you sort of take it for granted that, as a kid. So, embracing that at the time. And I thought, I think he's winding this up a little bit. Sure enough, he was correct. But certainly I won some state titles back in the day for karate, a lot of domestic competition. So I used to train pretty hard. Getting on the state team for the first time was just awesome, because I remember finding this instructor, Sensei Bruce Holland, who's still in Seaford. He was in a different part of Seaford back in the day, and thinking, this is like the people he was training were just all respectful, really polite. They were like lethal. But I love that environment. And he was at the time the one of the state coaches. So he ended up becoming sort of the head state coach. So I had a lot of coaches underneath. But I thought, this is me. And early days when I started, I thought this, because I'd already done it for a few years, because it was down the end of the street. I wanted to be like Bruce Lee and Karate Kid. And I thought, this time around, I'm going to give it a crack. And I thought, I want to get on the state team. I want to win a title. That was my whole thing. And that was my focus. And so I trained my bum off. And it was sort of one of the things that I thought, I watched people come up. It's hard work. I watch these people train, and some of them not flash, that just end up being just brilliant, just through following the process and just keeping up the work. So that was good. And then it became opening my own club. That was all awesome. So, but it's all consuming. And I think, you've only got a certain amount of time, depending on the sport. Some sports you have a bigger window. So for our sport, it's not so much you've got a smaller window, like for swimmers, for example. By the time you're 24 or 25, it's like you're one of the oldies. So for ours, it's a little bit different, but I think you just can't keep up that intensity, or, all of the time. And then whether it's an odd injury or being able to stay focused for that long. So I thought, oh, geez, I could still mix it up. I was going to compete a few years ago. And I thought, I can still mix it. I've still got the skills. I still train, but just that commitment and what it takes to stay at that level is just really, really hard. I sort of gave that away, and now my enjoyment comes from helping other people. So whether that's coaching, so I was helping out with the state team, one of the state coaches, whether that's school. My passion now is helping others to achieve their goals and their aims, and that's awesome for me. I didn't think, I don't know whether sometimes you can get a little bit selfish when it's your own sport and a little bit focused. And I thought, I love teaching and I love people, but it's become a real passion. So when I see our kids doing well or our competitors doing well, it's like, it's awesome. Or I see kids at school do well. So if you're getting a 40 for sport and rec, I'm punching the air, like I'm going off. Or it could be that you've managed to pass and you're scraping the barrel. Like last year was so tough. And have some of the kids still get through and be disappointed with their result, but go, you know what? There was such a bigger picture there. That's my passion nowadays, is just helping others. But it was good while it lasted, and I trained pretty hard for maybe 5 years, like at that competitive level. People will start in karate, for example, quite early, and they'll finish quite early. And then, by the time they sort of get to 16, 17, 18, it's just hard to keep up that commitment. And you'll see that in a lot of, you see it in swimming, you see it in, I was a lot around basketball with our own kids a lot. And I thought, oh, these kids are awesome. How could they stop? They could be playing in the NBA. Sure enough, they just go, it just all becomes too much. And it's very hard to keep that level. So yeah, I have different passions nowadays, and that's helping other people.
The impact you've made, like how many hundreds of kids cross your path every year?
Oh, and you know what? That's now when I go, so I'm actually teaching a sport and rec with a guy who went overseas and come back. He was like an ex-student. I've just had a student come back. I won't mention names because he might go, why mention, but who's now teaching with us.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. He was in my year level.
There you go. Absolute gun. And so actually having the chat, I remember him sending me a message once saying, that a really beautiful message. He just made an impact. And, if I could, I was surprised because usually like you don't expect that from kids. And so someone will say, yep, great job, thanks, high five. And you go, great. It's not what you do it for, but every now and again, someone will go, you made a difference. And so I'm teaching now with kids. The good thing is that at our school, we've got a bunch of kids now that actually ended up going to that school. And yeah, I don't know, every now and again, just something resonates and you go, oh, I had a girl last year who I taught who's into teaching, had to write about one of her, someone that had an impact. I think it was in her life, or a teacher that had an impact. Just wrote some beautiful stuff. I thought, oh, you forget sometimes that you do have such an impact, whether that be coaching or teaching. It's the same deal. Like you have, so I still remember my coaches from my teen years, and having staying at the coach's house, having a pie night at the coaches just before a final, just going. I just still remember that so vividly. But I think sometimes when you're coaching and it's like you're in it, it's hard to take that step back and just go, geez, you do make a difference.
Yeah.
Us as teachers, it's, that's your whole, you want to be able to make a difference. You want to be able to make those connections and build those relationships. But the same thing for coaches. You get coaches, you can say, oh, I'm just doing an under 14 basketball team. But, that can, for some of those kids, that's the greatest thing they do in their week. They just go, you know what, that's what we need. And that's why I think we were talking earlier about that whole lockdown thing. It's not until something like that happens that you go, you don't realise how much you need with that contact and people.
Yeah, I mentioned it before, but personally, like there's probably two teachers throughout my school that made a big impact on me, and you were certainly one of them. And I don't know if it was because I had you for year 7 sport all the way through, and then had you again in year 11 and 12, as well as the self-defense in the middle. But yeah, like you definitely made such an impact on my journey. And I think you probably taught me that I could make a career out of sport rather than be an athlete as well. And that really helped, and probably wouldn't be doing this podcast if it weren't for you. I'd be out of the industry.
I was so happy when I saw that, because I thought, you know what? I mean, you were, as I said, you were always driven and you're always going to be successful in whatever you did. So I'm always happy when someone, picks a pathway that is somewhere in the industry. So, often we get kids that'll from sport rec will go into, working in gyms or sports admin, or, become a masseuse or whatever it may be. So it's always good when you can have a little, it could be that if that's your passion and you get to do something with that passion, that's a good thing. That's good.
I probably learned that a lot from you. And I think it was probably, like you mentioned before, the self-defense class showed me that you don't have to fit into the mainstream sport, because I don't know if you remember back to when I was in year 7, but I didn't participate much.
Yes. You could swim well, but that doesn't help catching a ball.
No, and even like into year 12, I really was not the best until we did that water aerobics.
Yes. It's funny, I still remember that and thought, water aerobics, it's just, older ladies with purple hair, and just, I got buried in that very class. That was hard. I've forgotten all about that. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
of course, because you've got gills. So it makes it easy when you have gills to do things in the water.
That's it. That's where my element is. And anything on land, I sucked at.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention how much of an impact you really have made on me.
Bless.
And even
Thanks,
the kids
buddy.
that then I impact, it's probably coming from you as well.
Yeah, well, you'll notice the same thing in your own teaching. And sometimes you go, when you're teaching kids and just, please don't drown, please put that down, put your pants back on. it's all consuming. You forget sometimes that you do have an impact on these kids. Like sometimes it's hard yards when you go, whether it's you going, I'm teaching my 7th class for the afternoon. I'm so tired because I've already been working with it. It gets hard, but you make an impact. Sometimes it's hard to just step back and go, you know what, I do have an impact. So
something I tell my teachers is that it doesn't matter if it's your 20th class for the week, it's their first class. And like the looks that
Fiona.
The looks that those kids have when they see their teacher, or the teacher doesn't get to see it, but if they're sick and they've got me, then the look of disappointment when they see me in the pool instead of their teacher. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I'm using it. That's good. And we always say that it's like we're going through some coaching stuff now with the year 12's a coaching unit, and you just that whole, just being enthusiastic, and if you're not feeling it, you still have to have that drive, because kids smell it. Like they just know. You can't walk into a class and just go, okay, because they know. And the same as your kids know. You go, if your coaches aren't up and about, or your teachers aren't up and about, they know. And for some of them, it's like it's your livelihood. If you're a coach and that's your job, then it's not only just, it's a business as well. So you want to make sure that you've still got clients or still got members. So, yeah, that's very good, Fiona.
Yeah, well, you taught me well.
I think you're teaching me too. I actually wrote that one down now. I'll be using that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You better credit me for it to your
of course, yes.
Sport and Rec kids.
Yep, I'm saying from one of our older students. That's what I'll be saying. One of our alumni students.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like a deal. And that's the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 of this chat, where Nige tells us the benefits sport has had for him, the lessons he's learnt along the way, and where he sees the future of sport. Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone that you think would also like it. If you want to find out more, you can find us at Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart on both Facebook and Instagram. Until next time.